Hi everyone, and today we have a very special guest. I can call her my friend, and I am glad to be able to do that. This is Dr. Sneha Raman, a project research scientist at the Electrical Engineering Department at the Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay, where she is working on assessing the oral reading fluency of primary school children. Her interests include speech assessment and evaluation, speech perception, disordered speech, speech production, signal processing, machine learning, and biosignals. Hi Sneha and welcome.
Hello, thank you for having me on your podcast.
I would like to start this conversation with asking you to go back and look into your childhood and tell us the most vivid memories from that times.
I grew up in a middle class household. My mom was a teacher and my dad was a software engineer, and they were both busy with their work. My vivid memories are just me having a lot of time to myself and just exploring my surroundings, be it walking in the garden or just observing strangers in the balcony, etc. But then when my sister came, then I was interacting with her more. I also remember being a very imaginative kid. I was always making these worlds in my head about some fantasy situations. And yeah, I was a very imaginative kid to the extent that I've told my classmates that my building has this amusement park. And they would be like, "What, really?" And yeah, it's like a bit embarrassing, but then I guess as a child, you do these things. But what I take away from that is I've always had this storytelling tendency, which I carry even now.
That's beautiful. And what were your dreams in childhood? Did you dream becoming a researcher?
Not specifically being a researcher because I just didn't know what a researcher is. I think I only knew teaching and engineer and some other professions. But like I said, I've always been curious and observant. I was a very quiet person. I think these are qualities essential to be a researcher. But my dreams were mostly, I think, like I said, creating something. Maybe creating something beautiful or creating something improved or different from my reality. I liked world building, whether it's in my head or in my
That's
surroundings.
nice. So you did not dream about becoming a researcher, but you are. So we are having this conversation now. And let's see where it all started. Your master you did in UK, Edinburgh. Okay. It was in acoustic and music technology.
For that, I'll take you a little bit back because after I did my engineering, well, I didn't do engineering with a specific goal in my mind. It was like a popular profession. So I did it and I managed to scrape through, get decent marks. And then I joined this very corporate job. And I remember not liking it at all. It was very repetitive, non creative work. I was trying to find a way to get out of that situation. And I realized that there is a research wing in the same company. And I wanted to do a shift to that research department. But when I told them I want to do this, they were like, "Oh, you at least need a master's to be able to do research." Then I thought, okay, then I want to do a master's. Around the same time, there was this interesting story. I happened to read the paper. It was an article about Mr. Amar Bose. He is the founder of Bose Corporations, the speaker equipment. It was obituary of his death. He had passed away and it was about his life. He was a physicist, but he was deeply inclined towards music as well. With that combination, he found this company. And from that, I realized this is my calling to do computer science, informatics, but with the domain of music. That's why I applied to Edinburgh. That's the only university I applied to because I saw the course and I really liked the mix of multiple courses within it.
And did your parents support your desire to study abroad?
Yes and no. My dad was very supportive. He has always been, but he's now looking back, I feel like he was more of the optimist, not the practical person. But my mom was being very practical because, of course, it was a lot of money. It was some 24,000 pounds for 1 year, which is a lot of money. But my dad initially is like, yeah, of course, this is amazing news. You got through it. But go if you have a scholarship. So my attempts were to get a scholarship, but I didn't get a scholarship. And then it was like, what to do now. Now we have to spend money. He was even willing to take loan against my parents' house. Dad believed in me, blindly believed in me, I would say. All my relatives were against it. But anyway, I went and did that. It was, I would say, like a big step for me that changed my life.
And after you went to study to Spain, Bilbao, you got a scholarship, Marie Curie.
Yeah.
It's very, very good scholarship. It was really an achievement. What was the topic of your research? Can you tell more about that? How did you change from music into the research you did in Bilbao?
During my master's, I happened to take another course which was called speech processing by Professor Simon King. He was conducting that course. I really liked that course, and my final project was related to detection of Parkinson's from speech samples. That was a small project of 3 months, but I realized that this could be my next steps because in addition to music, having a social impact also interested me. That's why then I leaned towards speech because I wanted to do something more than just recreational and to do something with a social impact. I shifted to this speech research, and my PhD was also disordered speech enhancement. People who cannot speak well have problems in their vocal folds. In fact, in this particular situation, they didn't have vocal folds. They had laryngeal cancer, which means their vocal folds had to be removed. I was working on enhancing their speech to make it sound like a healthy person's.
Sounds unbelievable.
Yeah. But I have to add that at that time I thought speech is the more social impact career. But I must add that music equally has a lot of social impact because it is life changing for many people. That it's not very tangible. But if you see doctors listen to music, soldiers, lawyers, everybody's listening to music. That is also something with social impact, which I realized later in life.
And then was Granada.
Yeah.
Also Spain.
Okay. Yeah. I did the enhancement work for a long time, 5 years, and then I moved to Granada. Initially, I moved to Granada because I just wanted to learn flamenco dance. I went there for a month. I learned the dance, and I was like, I want to live here. I was looking for job opportunities, and I found the University of Granada and the Center of Experimental Psychology. There was this project where they would take brain signals and convert it into speech. It was decoding from brain signals. That was my project, which I did for 1 year.
How it was working with psychologists?
Another completely different experience because as engineers we are taught to think in a certain way, like it's a boxed way of thinking. 2 plus 2 is 4, a plus b whole square equals a, the equations, it's so set in our head. We tend to think in black and white a lot. When I started working with psychologists, I realized there's no black and white, especially like human nature. You cannot model it or put it into a box. Their way of thinking is very free flowing, not robotic.
All these years you were studying in different countries, at least 2 you already named, and there were some projects. I think you traveled, as I remember. And which countries have you visited? And if possible, tell at least one lesson which you took from each of these countries.
Right. First was Edinburgh, and I struggled a lot with the weather, the dark, cold weather. But I noticed like Scottish people, they are so warm. So it's very contrasting, and it taught me like it doesn't matter what your environment is, your way of being can decide how you cope with your surroundings.
Whom you decide to be. It's about decision.
Yeah, and how are you handling a tough situation? Because they clearly have very tough weather, but somehow I found them very, very warm. Then Spain, I have many things to say about Spain. I feel like everybody in the world needs a dose of Spain because again in India we are such a like herd mentality country. We are very obedient to our elders, and there are so many rules and things not to do, things to do. For me, Spain was like a big change because there nobody cares what other people do, and people just do what they want to do. So it's very liberating that nothing is prohibited and you can be your true self. And they value their personal life so much. Like the work-life balance there is really good. And I've noticed that it doesn't necessarily hamper your productivity. Just because you sit 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day in the office doesn't mean you're more productive. I've seen people who work 5, 6 hours a day and still achieve, because the rest of the day they will build that energy to come back the next day with a better perspective.
Other countries?
Then I went on a stay to Germany for 3 months and a stay to Greece, an island called Crete, for 2 months. Germany, I think that was the other extreme where people are very focused on work, at least in the region that I went to. It was north of Germany, Oldenburg. So I barely had any social life. I would say the other opposite of south of Spain. But what I learned is how to be very meticulous with your work, because they had so many systems in place. One example I can give you is I got hurt once and there is a first aid kit, and I just asked if I can pick a band-aid. And I was about to pick a band-aid when the lady said, "No, there is a procedure for this. You need to write your name and you need to write how many band-aid you took. Because later, if I get a blood infection or something, then they would take the insurance from work, not my personal insurance." They think so far ahead to plan things. For example, we were not allowed to put bags on the floor because if a fire happens and if you're doing experiments with old people, then they will fall on the bags.
They kind of calculate everything.
But I needed that because I didn't have that in me. I became more organized and meticulous in my work. And in Greece, I think Greece is similar to south of Spain as well. But they speak English there. I think it was much easier to communicate. It's a beautiful place. I think everything was beautiful there. The interactions between people are so warm to each other. I think it's because it's an island. I was reading something about the blue zones in this book called Ikigai. Something about islands, because in islands they have to work with each other, share resources, and between them they have this cohesion. I think they live well. It was good.
Did the visit to these countries influence your identity somehow, or your thoughts from your childhood, which we had? You named some, but maybe there are some more, like at least three most important things which are different from your country to more Western countries.
I think first one is like setting boundaries. It is a concept that we don't know in India. Like your relative will ask you anything, then setting a boundary, like I will decide that it's my life. You decide for yourself. That is something I learned. There is a statement that my dad would always say: you have to give unconditional love and support to everybody, the people around you. But I thought there's a bug in that logic because they don't apply it to themselves. You also have to give unconditional love and support to yourself. People in my country, they're very good at serving other people, making other people happy. But they don't put any focus on making themselves happy, or they even feel guilty about it. In Europe, that's not the case. I think that is the first focus. And it's good because then you can actually be helpful to other people. That's the other thing. What else? I think I love this whole personal space and individual. Also, in India, people don't have individual opinions because their opinions are the opinions of their group.
Okay,
You know,
families?
families, friend circles. If you'll always see people in groups. If you single out one person and ask them what is your point of view of this, and most probably their point of view is something that their friends own or their family owns. It's a collective point of view. But in Europe, people have personal point of views. That's because they have given themselves individual space and the time to think about things. But that's where I have to say the other side also. In India, what I like is also this cohesiveness between people. Like people always step up when they see somebody needs help, because they don't think about individual only, they think about the group. I love being in Bombay. It feels very comfortable. People take care of you. It's always that balance. So now that I'm back, I do take those principles with me, but I also appreciate the warmth of this country.
Was it difficult to adapt back once coming after so many years?
I think I've had many incidences where I've set these boundaries, maybe to relatives, and it doesn't feel nice. They also don't like it. But eventually they get used to it and they feel like they can also do it. For example, I'll tell my friend, no, I don't want to meet you right now because I have something else. I've never told this to her in the past. In the beginning, it's a shock, but then gradually now she can also tell me that, like, sorry, I am busy. I can't meet you.
This is kind of good, no? So spreading through your community all this what you have learned outside.
There's a huge difference, the working environment as well. It's very hierarchical in India. Of course, you call your supervisor sir, madam. I have people working with me. They are master students, undergrad students, interns. But the way I see it is they are all my colleagues and we are at the same level. That's how it was in Europe. I've had situations where my boss would sit with me and do the task together. It's not like your task, my task. I'm senior, I don't do these things. Everybody was equal. I've had instances where I've told my boss, I'm sorry, I couldn't do much because I was doing this 1 year postdoc and I didn't finish what I wanted to finish. He actually told me a story of his postdoc and how he couldn't finish something either. It's very empathetic. You treat people nicely even if they don't perform well. I think in our country, people are treated nicely at work only when they perform well.
Mm.
And that's very hard because you're operating in fear.
Does it depend from your caste system in past, like which you had in past? I know that now I think it's not so common.
Yeah, I think I can see parallels because people who are privileged, they just feel like they are entitled to feel superior. I think the same system must exist at
This
workplaces
mentality
for
is
sure.
still there.
Yes.
After so many years looking back, what you would suggest to yourself when first time going abroad?
I wish I, like the me of 34 years old, would give some guidance to the me of 24 years old. I was so lost the first few months. I had no idea how to deal with people, how to be in a new environment. I think I would just give myself these little advices to not maybe trust people too easily. But then also, I miss that kind of life now. I'll trust less as I grow
Mm-hmm.
older.
Mm.
When you trust more, life is so fun. Like,
Yeah,
yay, everybody is awesome.
kind of rose glasses.
Yeah, it's great in the moment. Of course, you will end up in a lot of problematic
Yeah,
situations.
but until that time, it's nice.
It's nice. But now it's like, "Oh, I don't want to get into a problematic situation. I'm not going to do that." You take less risks. I think everybody has to go through it. That's all. I don't think I would change anything. I would give myself more money.
That's nice. And what are the secrets in finding a common language with all these people from different cultures, different backgrounds? I mean, you have to find a common language with them.
Yeah, totally. That's a
From your
great question.
experience, yes, from your
Yeah.
experience.
The way I learned Spanish is I had this friend who didn't speak any English and I didn't speak any Spanish. But we had things like common things. For example, maybe you see a very good looking boy and you're like, ooh, it's all non-verbal in the beginning. There are so many things you can just say non-verbally. Or you go to see a mountain or the sea and you're experiencing something together. Doesn't necessarily need words. I think building friendships and building some vocabulary together, that is how I picked up at least Spanish. And she picked up English as well. I feel like there is a language beyond language as well. And if you have this deep desire to communicate, which I do, I have a deep desire to connect with people. It's then easy to communicate.
Let's go after your work in Granada. You went back to India after so many years. And what was your research topic? I know it also was related to Parkinson's disease.
Right. I joined this institute called IIT, Indian Institute of Technology in Bombay. My first project there was an entrepreneurship project, and it was a project where we were 10 of us, and they put medical doctors, PhD graduates, and product designers all together. And they asked us to make innovative products. And we were given all the resources like 3D printing, access to hospitals, so many things. On paper, it was a great idea. You have all the resources you need, you build something. Each one of us had to think of a project. I thought about this, my master's project of detecting Parkinson's from speech, and also how Parkinson's patients fall a lot because they cannot walk steadily.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to make a device for them to not fall. The challenges there I realized is that yes, you may have ideas, you may have resources, but fundamentally you need this entrepreneurship mindset to bring your ideas into a product. And that mindset is about selling. What is the need in the market? How do we fill this need? I think I picked it up a little bit, but I don't think I was ready yet to make a company of my own and to go into that mode of thinking.
And now you're doing
Yeah, so then I
something.
switched my project to this other lab, and this is with a professor who's also quite well known in India for speech, Professor Preeti Rao. I contacted her because she works with speech and music. Interestingly, she had some project ongoing, and she asked me if I would be interested in doing that. And that project is assessing oral reading fluency. We have a app which runs in many schools in India, some 1,200 schools, and some 700,000 children take a test, which is reading a passage. And from that audio, we detect how many words they said incorrectly, how many words were deleted, and so on. And then we give a score to the child, like how fast they spoke, how correctly they spoke. And that is the so how accuracy and pace, these are the two aspects of oral reading. You need to be accurate and you need to speak in a good speed. We assess that. And in addition, the child also needs to read expressively. They need to know how to group words together.
Intonation, kind of music.
Intonation, grouping words together, getting the rhythm of that speech.
You can hear it with meaning, like not just a number of words, like, but just
Exactly.
to catch the
Yeah.
meaning,
Yeah.
to understand.
Exactly. So a child who reads with expression, with the right rhythm, it means that they understand the meaning, and that is why they are making those chunks.
Are there any tips for parents how to teach children to read faster and more expressive?
Yeah, so we are making now our next step is to make remedial measures. We can help these children to be better. I think one of the factors is exposure. The child needs a lot of exposure to the print as well as the audio of that particular language. In their native language, that's easy, right? They have the exposure. But in countries like India or with English as a foreign language, they don't have this exposure. So that is the first step. Give them a lot of material, both text and audio. Then there are techniques of teaching them how to group words, how to pause correctly. Yeah.
That's nice. You have mentioned already about dance. Let's go back a bit. Let's talk about your hobbies. When this passion for dance started?
I think it was forcefully put on me by my dad. He just sent me to dance classes. I did enjoy it because I remember liking to move, like with nursery rhymes. I knew that I was moving around. He put me for this dance class and music class, and I don't think I was enjoying it until the age of 16, 17. That's when I was really passionate about dancing. And I was glad that I got the foundational training because I already knew how to move my body. When I was actually passionate about it, it helped me.
And how do you think dance helped you in some ways in your life?
I remember telling a lot of people is that dance teaches you to adjust to your surroundings. Fundamentally, dance, it's two things. One, you need to move to the music and you need to move with other people in sync. And somehow that is also ingrained in me that I quickly adapt to situations. I can move in rhythm with the people around me. That is a good skill, but it can also be a downside because then you don't know what your own rhythm is. So it's always a balance.
There are also some poems. There are poems on your YouTube channel. You write poems, you sing songs. How did you reach to this?
I feel like there are people who are either consumers or producers. I'm maybe the second type.
Mm.
If there is a chance to create something, I'll create it. Every time my brain is on, I feel with new ideas. The poem thing specifically happened because of my dad's passing and some tough moments in my life when you're like, you don't know. You can talk to your friends, but they don't know the whole situation. And you can write in your diary, but some things are too like abstract. You don't even know what it really means to put it to sentences. But poetry is a good way to keep things abstract and yet feel that catharsis. Now I think I've stopped writing. I feel like maybe I'm happy now. That's why I'm not writing. I feel you have to have some kind of darkness to write things. Either I'm really happy or I'm too busy in this very crowded country. One of the two is happening.
Is there anything you think that influenced you in your childhood to become the person you are today?
I've always appreciated people who articulate well, who speak well. I was a very quiet person as a child, didn't talk at all. When I was 22, I got this first job and I was sent for a training program to the city, Hyderabad, where I am right now, for 3 months. And there they taught us how to speak, how to eat with fork and knife, all those,
Etiquettes, kind of.
etiquettes and public speaking. So we had some facilitators there who I really admired how fluent they were. But my parents noticed that after that trip, I was just talking nonstop. Something switched in that training program. But as a child, I think I was always drawn to people who was articulate and can express themselves well.
Maybe this brought you to the speech research.
Maybe.
And what was your source of inspiration also for your art? I understand, like for poems, maybe sadness, but in general, in everyday life, how do you inspire yourself? Like to go on, you know?
I think it's the desire to do something big in life. Again, it comes from expression. Like even dance, it just feels good. When I went to Spain, dance got a different meaning for me because until then, dance was a very, like, I learned classical dance and I would do dance that is on Bollywood music. So you have some set steps and you're repeating those fixed steps. But when I went to Spain again, dancing in clubs or wherever, people have this individualistic way of moving. That's why I like reggaeton. I mean, I agree that the lyrics are really bad, uh, but it's just so like self-fulfilling and you can express yourself. You can move yourself the way you want to, and that movement gives you so much joy. Dance for me is like the joy aspect of it. If I'm joyful, I dance. If I want to feel joy, I dance.
You seem to be a very motivated person with clear views in what you want from life, from people around, and from yourself. What is the secret of this attitude? And what keeps you motivated in your life?
It's funny you say that because that is not my opinion of myself, but I hear people saying that to me a lot. Maybe it appears that way, but I don't think I have that much clarity of thought. If it appears like that, it's because they don't know the whole story. But there's one thing I feel like if I'm feeling like I'm failing or something is not working out, I'll try my best to get out of it and look at the next steps. Like, what can I do? Whether it's rejection or something failing at work, something failing in relationships. I always feel like I'm a problem solver. So then I solve those problems. But now I've also learned to let go. And if it is flawed, it is flawed. It's fine. That is also a liberating thing about growing up because let's say you're a child and you're building something constantly. It's all perfect, it's all nice. Then at some point you'll notice flaws in yourself. And then at that point you're like, oh wait, this is a feature, not a bug. So then it's like fine. And that's why again I go back to Spain. Like people are so unapologetic. They know they are flawed. It's okay. You just, move on.
Did you have any failure in your life? You started about failures, so.
Yeah, so many. Like,
Okay, one, two. Can you name some? Which are
big failures. There are many, but I want to say the biggest ones maybe.
Yeah, because until now we talk about your career and all success. Now will say, okay, not only that all people are failing, but
Exactly. So after my master's, I sat at home for 6 months. That was like one failure. I didn't find a job in Scotland. And my dad was then paying the loan. And then I was hoping that I'll find a job and pay it back. But I didn't get it. I had to come back home. Yeah, that was a failure. But somehow after 6 months, the same professor, Professor Simon, he gave me the advertisement of this PhD and I got that. And I think it's the best thing that has happened to me, that PhD.
And is there anything you regret in your life looking back?
Maybe I regret giving chances to people who have disappointed me over and over again. But it was also the me of the past who allowed it.
What you would suggest, like for people who face this problem, parents are not supportive for their dreams, their desires, their wishes, young people?
Yeah.
What would you suggest? How to go through this?
Naturally, all parents are fearful of what will happen to their children, what will happen to their family. So I think parents not supporting, underlying that is some fear. If they're able to have a conversation about that fear and find a way to manage that fear, then that support can happen.
So your suggestion will be to not react, but to try to understand what is behind.
Of course, yeah.
Okay.
Because in most cases, at least in India, the parents might not support because their relatives don't support. And it just keeps growing like a tree. Yeah. So somewhere that fear has to be broken.
And what would be your message to all young souls which are trying to follow their dreams or would like to follow their dreams in life?
I work with a lot of young people who are like between 18 to 20, 21. And what I notice in them is that they are more self-assured. They know what they want and they are not afraid to speak their mind. I feel like they are doing fine. So as long as they can speak their mind, articulate their problems, then they can reach big heights. But also, one thing is handling criticism. I think that is a skill, at least I've learned it much later in life. But to handle criticism and to not take it personally, but as a stepping stone to improve yourself, that will help them, I think.
How do you empower women or women in India and around the world to follow their passions?
Whenever I think of the ideal woman or ideal scenario for women, I go to Bilbao, like the Basque country. It's such a matriarchal society. Women have so much power, and I just like everybody should be a Basque woman because they don't take any nonsense. They say right away if they're unhappy with something, and they will fight for what they believe in. That is the first step. If you're unhappy, you express it and you create an environment for yourself or be in an environment where you can express your displeasure. And if you can do that comfortably, and then there's nothing that can stop you.
Would you change anything in your life if you would have the chance?
Yeah, and recently I've been thinking because I'm in this institute, which is a very high level competitive institute, and everybody around me is like so smart, even 18, 19-year-olds. I would say if I could change something, I would upskill myself more in some specific skill sets, spend more time just working on those things, improving and be more confident, because right now I feel like there are many skills which are on my CV, but it could use so much more refinement.
If you would have a superpower, which problem, one, you would solve in the world?
I think I would want people to coexist with their differences.
That's beautiful.
It's so common, like everybody has differences. There are wars, there is problems at work, relationships. But if there is some like superpower within you where you can coexist peacefully with someone whose views are completely different from yours, I think that will be good.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, Sneha.
Thank you for conducting this podcast.
I hope your conference will go well.
Yeah.
And hope you see you next time.